1972 made. It's a movie that I came across the other day, and it's set in London. A relationship between a woman and a young musician. The woman's played by Carol White, the musician is played by Roy Harper, who was in fact a musician. The movie is directed by John Mackenzie, screenplay by Howard Barker. Carol White plays Valerie Marshall, Roy Harper plays Mike Preston, and basically it involves, as I say, a relationship between White's character. She had already appeared in Ken Loach's Cathy Come Home, so she was quite famous at the time. Harper, of course, had a fairly successful career as a musician in the folk sort of genre, and this involved the more promiscuous 66, set in 66, and it came at a time when a number of musicians started to appear in films. This is, so it's number 72. David Essex, That'll Be the Day in 73. Jimmy Cliff, Hardy the Come in 1972, and of course Mick Jagger in Ned Kelly's movie Performance in 1970. So they became a sort of a fashionable item, I guess, and this involves Valerie, whose love life involves her company boss, the Father Dyson, friendly man of the cloth, and of course Mike, who she meets out on a day out in Brighton. So Marshall's a single mother. She's stuck in a dead-end switchboard operator job. She's looking after a young baby. She does a second job, looking after a young baby for. She also cares for her mother, who's bedridden with multiple sclerosis, and her only friend seems to be the fellow worker June. It's, as I say, love life split between three people. The soundtrack music appears to be Harper as well. A long drawn out introduction with Harper singing. We have images in sort of silhouette style of Valerie having fun on a merry-go-round. Mike, Harper's character, sitting in front of a mic with his acoustic guitar, and then the preacher man going about his chores. The tone of the movie set by the initial scene where Valerie's in a car with a guy who wants to get his leg over straight away, and she doesn't want to go down that road that quickly, and they end up in a argument, and she eventually gets out of the van. Further scenes: three youths frightening Valerie as she goes down a sort of multi-storey car park, sort of steps. She fortunately runs into a policeman who escorts her home, and then these youths eyeballing a couple having it off inside their van sets us up to what sort of movie we're letting ourselves into. She arrives back at her mum's house. Mum's asleep. The TV is on black and white, of course, and there's this acoustic guitarist performing live, and of course it's Harper. She changes her kid's nappy, and then there's this beautiful scene where she's lying on the bed and playing with the infant. It's very, very warm. Val's friend June is caught up in a typical scenario where she's got a boyfriend. Her husband left, but now he's coming back, and she's now faced with the dilemma. The boyfriend's got to move out. A new preacher appears, Father Dyson, making contact with his parishioners, aware that Val's mother is sick, and she's a moaning Minnie, and eventually she shoos him off. Father's full of good ideas. He said he can organise maybe a home help. He's got a day trip to Brighton planned, and invites Val and her baby along. A pushy worker at the exchange in admin keeps going on about having dinner with her, and we see that follows her friend getting fucked by her husband in a sort of, it appears to be, I'm not quite sure where. The dinner with the Indian man collapses quickly when he tries to make a play for her, and she clearly doesn't see him as her type. Next, it's travel on the train, and the father starts to explain the perils of his work with massive understaffing in the social welfare department. Ooh, haven't I heard that before? Rebellious youth is seen on the train, out of control. The movie then shifts to Mike, aka Roy Harper, and he's being interviewed while in some car on his way to a gig, one assumes, about his musical influences. Brighton, Ryan Pier, the Yobs run amok. The priest in charge of his group of teenagers leaves Val with her baby on the pier, and then we see a group of Hare Krishna in the streets. We then catch Whispering Bob Harris interviewing Mike, aka Harper, and Val passes by with the baby. There's a small crowd gathering, hooking onto every word that Harper utters about his followers and his responsibility as a musician and as a songwriter. After talking about such high concepts of love and religion and social responsibility, Mike then takes a walk along Brighton Beach. They strike up a chat, Mike and Val. Quick chat. Then he's pulled away to do an impromptu performance under the pier, or on top of the pier, and she goes along with the baby. Next minute, Val's joined up with him in his car and his roadies as they move on to the next gig, I guess. Val and kid staying Harper's hotel room. It's rather amusing, really. This far, no sex. Baby in the middle. Brief fling departure in the morning, courtesy of the chauffeur. She returns on the train. Shots of her looking vacant, empty. This guy had passed through her life for a day, but she seems almost pining for him. And back in her hometown, she runs into the priest again. A scene when Val's friend and her man friend walking through the town as the crowd disembark after a football match brings back so many memories of full time. The streets are absolutely packed with people. To further enhance the mood, we capture a mass fight between rival supporters. Hooliganism alive and well. Val's friends got the pram. It's an inevitable feeling that something tragic's going to happen. Come to a flight of steps, and her and the pram just fall. Baby killed. The harrowing scene as the policeman arrives, goes inside and tells her the news. More grief as she tells her mother, who's still in hospital. White's pretty convincing actually, showing her sort of the emotions in full, to a full extent, and with a lot of deep feeling. It's very well acted. Life goes on. We see the priest playing the organ on the assumes at the service, and then Val back as the operator, vacant, empty. By chance, Val runs into Mike, crumb of comfort. There's a bath frolic between Mike and Val. A vivid scene of the last breath in the life of Val's mother. Priest delivers the news to Val of her mother's passing. The priest and Harper's character definitely don't see eye to eye on lifestyles and responsibilities, that's for sure. Val overhears the argument. He's off on tour, concerts, America, blah blah blah. Once again, she is left now, no child, no mother, empty. Val goes to the hospital morgue and views her mother's body. Brought back memories of me viewing my father's. Not so much a morgue, it's just a room, but she pulls the curtains back, looks out on this typical sort of London street. It sort of looks bare and uninviting, and it's quiet, of course, and you sense that she's contemplating where to now, what happens next. Her life has been sort of split apart, and Mike off on that plane. Harper's song again as we see him breezing round with the roadies into San Francisco. Next up, Val is with the preacher in a restaurant. He's without his dog collar, and they find some amusement in watching a customer on an adjoining table feeding a dog some spaghetti. The preacher starts to preach about what man might be suitable for Val, and she loses her temper and storms out of the restaurant. We then capture an image of a reel-to-reel tape recorder and a sermon from him. He appears to be absent. She turns up at the Indian guy's house, and they fumble through sex of some description. He's elated, she's sort of going through the motions. After the act, he becomes all possessive, and she moves on out of the flat. There's a scene in the street, and then the police come, and we'll get an image of the police assuming that the Indian is out of order. She then sort of leaps to his defence, but when the Indian, tries to create a scenario that they're married, she then loses her temper and calls him a black bastard. It's quite ironic how it all unfolds. Last ironing at home and trying to get rid of her headache, Mike has released a song, and it's on the radio, and it's about her and her loss. It becomes almost tortuous for her to listen, and eventually she shuts the radio down. We're back to the roundabout swinging with him and Mike and Val on it.